Legendary Florida State baseball coach Mike Martin passed away on Thursday, days before his 80th birthday. Kurt Weiler, the Osceola, and to honor Coach Martin, to honor 11, there are a few people better I could talk to. I mean, outside of direct family members, I'm not sure many people knew him better than Chip Baker. Coached alongside him as assistant coach, was a longtime director of baseball operations for him at Florida State. Chip, thanks for joining me today to honor 11.
Well, Kurt, I appreciate you reaching out. We all know Mike Martin meant a lot to everybody, but he was my guy, and I worked for him for 35 years, and I got great memories. There's a lot of memories in my mind. You just got to prime the pump. We'll get them going today.
For sure. No, and yes, I appreciate 35 years as not to make you feel old, I'm 33. So it's it's impressive. And I mean, there are plenty of people, I'm sure, incredibly envious of the opportunity to work for someone like 11. I'm curious. Let's start at. I'm not sure I've heard the story. How did you? Because you weren't originally in the Florida State sphere. How did you first meet Mike Martin and start working for him? And I guess what were your first impressions of him?
I was a young assistant coach working at Virginia Tech in grad school. I'm gonna date myself, but we all know I've got a few years under my belt. 1981, Florida State was in the Metro Conference. We came to Tallahassee and played Florida State. And I had to go back and look. I know we came down during the year, but we also came down for the tournament, the old Metro Conference tournament. Mike Martin and Chuck Hartman, again, two North Carolina guys. They were great friends. And like I told somebody yesterday, I just fell in the middle of it and learned. And I love Chuck Hartman, my old coach. And then Mike Martin, got to know them, competing against him for, 4 years, 3 years at Virginia Tech, and then again a year at Georgia Tech. And when Mike Martin hired me, he reached out to Chuck Hartman and he asked him, tell me about Chip Baker. I'd met him. I know him. He's worked my camps. He said, and he gave me the best recommendation someone could. And basically what he told him, he says, Chip will work and you don't have to tell him to work. And again, Coach Martin shared that with me a few years later. And I made a task of telling our young coaches at camp, just go to work. Don't sit there and ask something. Go to work. Just start working. And that's how it started a 35-year. And I'm gonna say it love affair because I'm a man. And he gave me the opportunity, and I loved it when he let me go. And I went a lot on my own, but he let me go.
Yeah, I guess you talked about, I guess, getting to know him a bit before working for him. I guess what was your impression of 11 from afar, and how did that differ from, especially in the early years, actually working under him, being his third base coach?
Mike Martin came in Florida State his first year and then went to Omaha. And, I've been the kiss of, then there was so much expectation. And I came in the fall of 84 and coached my first year in the dugout, 85. Then he threw me to the Wolves in 1986. And we went on a pretty good run the next 15 years. 11 out of the next 15 years, we went to Omaha. But Mike was the years of, and I was part of it for a year, but I think it got at him a little bit in the early 80s about after his first year going to Omaha, and he wanted to go back. And jokingly, he never said the word Omaha. He said that place begins with an O and ends in an A. But it fueled the fire. It set the foundation of everything we went through in the late 80s and into the 90s. Again, Mike Martin legacy, that's when it started with me.
I think people, obviously, a lot of talk about Mike Martin, the man, and we're definitely going to talk about Mike Martin, the man. I'm curious, you probably have as insightful a view as just about anybody about Mike Martin, the coach. I mean, there are a lot of great college baseball coaches who won a lot of games, who won national titles, who didn't win 40 games or more for 40 straight years. I mean, that is a ridiculous feat that, especially in today's era of college baseball, I'm not sure will ever be matched again. I guess from your perspective, what made him so consistent and so effective a manager, a coach?
He truly cared about his players. Each guy, individual. I mean, Kurt, I've had so many former players reach out to me over the last few weeks, but especially yesterday. And every one of them to a T said Mike Martin made them feel part of the family. And when you're part of the family, he gets on you. You want to respond and do your best for him. And these kids going, and they're all men now. They're 50 plus years old. I got some guys that are 60 plus years old. And they all want to do it because he made them feel part of the family. And that's all I can say about that part.
What about, I guess, his baseball knowledge? I'm sure, I mean, the human element, I'm sure, comes into it, but just how impressed were you, I mean, on a daily, on a weekly basis with the baseball knowledge that he possessed, and how he mixed, I mean, the being the person that kind of rallied that program together with, I mean, seems like he always knew how to push the right buttons.
You know, we joke about it. My great friend Rod Delmonico, who's a former assistant coach here and left here to go to Tennessee. You know, we all work camps together. We've been to different places and stuff, and learned to teach the game. And sometimes Coach Martin would come up with something like, "Let's try it this way. Let's try it this way." And Rod and I would have conversations like, "You can't do it that way." And we ended up doing it that way. And if you do it enough and you get consistent with it, make it simple, the W's happen. And, you know, young coaches want to throw their 2 cents in, and we threw in their 2 cents, but we all knew who was the boss.
It's often said, I mean, when someone of great magnitude passes away, you talk about, I mean, they were a great, whatever they did, occupation, but an even better person. I feel like that's often said a lot when this happens, but I think it's especially true for Mike Martin. I mean, I can vouch for it. I'm sure you can vouch for, I mean, the type of person he was, how he treated people. I mean, just seeing him on a daily basis. I mean, how did that affect you? How did that change you? How did that mold you? What was it like? I mean, just seeing how real he was is kind of, I think the word, and kind, I would say, is another word that describes him well.
You know, there's been so much outpouring of love from the players, but also the fan base. And I've heard stories yesterday, I heard stories today of how he treated just the normal person. You know, parents would call up and their kids, and you know, I've always had I run into people nowadays, their grandchildren came to baseball camp, or they might have came to baseball camp and their granddads now, which makes me, again, dated. But Coach Martin treated everybody the same, and he's felt like when you're with him, you're the only person in the room. Now, I can't go back to being I'm the only person in the room and that door was shut, and being an assistant coach. And he and I had conversations. It's mostly a one-way conversation. And he guided me. And I'm going to put a hand on me. He guided me. And I told people this, my dad taught me to be a man, and Mike Martin taught me to be a gentleman. And those are, my dad and Mike Martin, are two most people that helped me so much in my life. And to know this, that my dad and Mike Martin were pretty good friends, and they got to know each other during my coaching days, and now they're together again. So that makes things better for all of us.
Yeah, I guess I'll put you on the spot a bit. I imagine there are so many that come to mind, and I'm ready to hear as many as you want to share. What are a few stories that stand out that really capture the essence of 11?
You one or two, you gotta find them. They're in my head a lot. I had a player yesterday reach out to me. It was a 1994 College World Series. Scott Zetch. Scott Zetch and I have become very close in the last few months. He's doing my retirement insurance and all that, so I'm giving him a plug right here. He's reaching out. Kurt, he set me up for the same insurance he has his parents, so I guess that's going to be okay. But he reached out to me yesterday and he said, Link Jarrett, 1994, we're in the seventh or eighth inning. I can find out what inning if I need to. But it was Link Jarrett was on second base. Mike Martin Jr. had just lined out to right field. 2 outs. Link's at second. We got a tie ball game against LSU. And Zetch was the next guy on deck. And Zetch, starting to walk up. He's going to the bat with runner on second, 2 out. And Coach Martin Levin called him back. And he said, Zetcher? And he talked about in Coach Martin's North Carolina draw. He said, Zetcher, if you get a hit here, we're going to win this ball. We're going to win this dadgum ball game. That's Mike Martin to his classic. Zetch gets up, battles, fouls some balls off, and pulls a ball through the shortstop side. Link Jarrett's on second base. I'm coaching third, and I bring him, and Link slides head first into the plate. There's so many videos I've seen of this. It was on ESPN. Link sliding head first. The players are meeting him at home plate. And with Paul Wilson on the mound throwing the complete game, and this last pitch of that game was 96 miles an hour, Florida State beat LSU in the College World Series in 1994. That's probably one of just again from yesterday, just chill bumps of hearing that story.
What has it meant? I mean, you talked about it, the outpouring of love. And I mean, he coached some great players who went on to do great things after Florida State on the field and off the field. I mean, the list of names you can recite is crazy. What has that meant? I mean, I'm sure you knew the impact he had on so many people, but the people who felt the need to call you, to share all those stories, to just, I mean, proclaim their love for Mike Martin.
You know, it's the great players. You can go through the list, and I know Mike and Buster had a special relationship all through Buster's career, because I know there were some morning texts going out. You know, West Coast Buster's in San Francisco. There's communication with J.D. Drew. I know he and Kevin Cash have communication. Pedro Grifol, you know, is now with the White Sox. But a guy that's special with Mike Martin is Eduardo Perez and Eduardo's family. And he's family to me. He's one of my guys. But Jen, it's not the stars. It's the guys that were the normal player that probably had aspirations of playing the big leagues, but sometimes just playing for Mike Martin, playing for Florida State meant the world to these guys. Those are the guys who help you win and put you in a position to win. And those are the guys I think that Mike Martin meant the most to.
For sure. No, it's what you talked about, Buster, and I know, I guess I'm thinking that ended up being his last trip to Hauser was for the Buster ceremony. I remember he walked out on the field for that last year. I'm sure he was there and in hiding. I know Coach Norvell watched a game with him a few times during Mike Martin Jr.'s tenure as well. I guess, what do you think? What did the support of the fan base that one last trip for Buster's jersey retirement, you think, mean to him last year?
You know, Kurt, that was a tough day for Buster Posey. Buster, I know, would love to come back and just sit and watch a ball game, spend some time with 11. But having Buster back that day with all the fanfare of his jersey retirement, he had his whole family. He's got twins. He's got older kids. He had grandparents. I met Buster when he got on campus, and he had to help the granddad get out of the car. You know, logistically, it was a tough day for him. But after everything was over, and again, you saw Buster throw a strike and his son catch it. Coach Martin's with him on the field. But Coach Martin came back upstairs to my office, and I brought Buster in, and younger me would stay there. I knew when to leave. I shut the door, and I kept everybody out. And you know, it was Mike Martin and Buster Posey and Miss Carroll. They were all there at the same time, and I think that I cherished the opportunity that Buster had with Mike Martin right then. It might have been 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but it was a good time there for Buster Posey Day back in March of last year.
I think people talk about Mike Martin. I think they talk about the 11isms. They talk about the sense of humor, his regular press conference phrases. What was he like humor-wise behind the scenes? I mean, was he the same way with the 11isms, with the quips in coaches' meetings and player meetings type things? Or was he kind of a different person entirely in those settings?
That's Mike Martin. It was no different. Obviously, you sit in after a ball game or before a ball game, we put a plan in place. We never had meetings. And if we had, I can go back and someone's asked me about a pregame meeting. We might have had one in the dugout for a minute or so occasionally. I mean, some teams have it every day before practice. Mike Martin believed in meetings. He got the guys together when he needed to. But what you saw Mike Martin is what we experienced Mike Martin. You know, I had the opportunity to coach with him for 18 years, and I was off the field for almost 20 with him, you know, whatever it was at the time. And my goal every day, I didn't get to go to the staff meetings. They might have had some staff meetings in the office, and the coaches are going through this and that. And he was doing a great job of teaching assistant coaches. My day was over being a coach. I would go to him and I gave him options. Mike, we can do this, we can do this. And we started flying charter airplanes, which I took full control of that one. It was my airplane, and I got him to sit down up front. And he kept always asking me, he said, CB, what time we leaving? I said, Mike, we're planning to leave at this time, but we'll leave whenever you get there. And that was, he always loved for me to tell him that. I said, we'll leave whenever you get there. And that's what he'd love to hear that from me. But again, my goal every day when I was off the field to go down and I tried to make him laugh about something. And I cherish those moments right now.
I know the field's been named after him for a long time. I mean, well before the end of his coaching career, the field was named after him at Dick Howser Stadium. I know there was the shrine outside, I think, Howser yesterday from fans just leaving things, and there was a bobblehead and various other things out there. I know there's a new kind of shrine to him in the traditions room that they redid this offseason. I guess, what does it mean to you? I mean, all the ways he's going to be commemorated for years to come within the Florida State baseball program. I mean, obviously having someone like Link Jarrett who played for him will help with that a ton, I have to imagine.
You know, what we've seen in the last few days, Link Jarrett's interview, you guys did a great interview with him. I was not part of that process with the new, and they're going to call it Legends Room, not Tradition Room. I think the Legend Room. Okay. And Link completely changed it. I was part of the process of getting things in there, but with Link completely changed it. And I walked in and saw it a few weeks ago because I don't go back to campus every day. I want to go every day, but it seemed like, you know, give them space, given that, and I got things I can do. But I went back and saw it, and Link looked at me, and I had a tear in my eye. I said, Link, I love it. I love what you've done to recognize your Tradition Room, which is now the Legacy Room. But what he did for Mike Martin, had a display, a photo of Mike and Carol together. You touch an iPad, and it's got the full 4-minute video of Mike Martin that was put together by Seminole Productions, and it get a tear in your eye. And I said, Link, I hugged him. I said, I love this. I love what you've done. He remembers Mike Martin legacy because Link is a Seminole and he's a Mike Martin Seminole. And you can't get nothing better than that. And also, he was my shortstop. That's why I introduced Link was my shortstop for 4 years. I hit him every fungo he took. I even signed Link when the coaches could go on campus. I went and signed Link Jarrett at Florida High as a backup shortstop, which he became the starting shortstop for 4 years. So rest assured, we got a good guy at the helm right there.
Yeah, I would talk about Link. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, that it is a guy who played for 11. I mean, you called him a Mike Martin Seminole. That, like, what's that mean that you hope he's here for the long term? You have to, I mean, for someone like you, I imagine it's a comforting feeling knowing, I mean, someone like him who's been through it, who knows what it is to be a Seminole, who's probably a Seminole in terms of spirit up close to Mike Martin. I mean, just what does that mean for you?
Well, Link Jarrett was part of 4 years here, I mentioned.
Yep.
Nobody in the history of baseball has more putouts and assists, and nobody's going to break that record. It was my shortstop for 4 years. Brooks Badeau was my shortstop the next 4. He's number 3 all time. Link is number 1. Brooks is number 3. We won a lot of ball games. What I'm getting back to, Link Jarrett was part of Florida State making that run in the 90s. As a freshman, 1991, his first baseman was Eduardo Perez. His catcher was Pedro Grifo. That's 2 pretty good guys to lean on right there. And then he ended up playing with Mike Martin Jr. He played with Doug Minkiewicz, Mike Bell, you know, a whole list of players. I mentioned Zach earlier. There was a great foundation of some great baseball players. Paul Wilson, Jonathan Johnston, David Yoakum, all 3 first-round draft picks. That was Friday, Saturday, Sunday in a rotation. And again, the guys just battled, and Link was part of that from 91 to 94.
Chip, I'm open to anything else you want to share about Mike Martin. I greatly appreciate you taking the time and sharing so much about, I mean, who
Well,
he
I just got a
was.
phone call from Florida State Sports Information Director Stephen McCartney, and they picked the time and the date for the service for Coach Martin. It's going to be at Dick Howser Stadium on Saturday, February 10th at 12 noon. He wanted me to get that out. You guys put that out as much as you can. I think they're probably going to release it today, but he wanted me to get that information out. And it's going to be at Dick Howser Stadium, and I have no idea how many people is going to come. I've reached out to college baseball. A lot of coaches in college baseball. I knew when the news came out yesterday, these coaches have reached out to me. I didn't reach back to them. I reached out to the operations guy. And I knew all these guys as much as I knew what I did for Mike Martin. If someone reached out and wanted me to get a hold of Mike Martin, they would text me or call me, and I would go directly to him. And that's what all these guys did yesterday. And that's the love of the respect of Mike Martin had, of the coaches had for Mike Martin. You got coaches from the SEC. You got Coach O'Sullivan at University of Florida. You got coaches at Vanderbilt. You got coaches all around doing stuff. Just Elliot Avan at NC State. You got everybody just making great statements about Mike Martin because he meant a lot to him. He meant a lot to him. I got a coach now, Mike Gambino. Mike Gambino was assistant coach at Virginia Tech and Boston College, was a head coach at Boston College. Now he's a head coach at Pitt. You got the coach now at Clemson, who was at Maryland. And he asked Coach Martin for some advice, and he told him to get out of Maryland. So he went to Michigan. We played him in the World Series, and now he's at Clemson, Coach Babich. So, and it's all, I got the names. If I can read them, I'm a lot better. But I know all these guys, and all these guys have reached out. And I'm honored that they have the trust in me and to reach out to me, because I'll reply back to these guys because they mean the world to me. And I know how much Coach Martin meant to them.
No,
Even umpires have reached out to me because I was close with them in my day job, but also when I was coaching, I knew a lot of these guys. And these guys had so much respect for Mike Martin. They came to Tallahassee. Our people, our administration, our baseball staff took care of these umpires, but they were honored to go on the field with Mike Martin. And some of them, I'm not saying, they didn't mind having a confrontation, the head-to-head with Mike Martin. And I got some guys that, they always, I've had guys, hey, can you get a photo? Did you guys get a photo of him with me? So I've sent some of these photos out. But again, from the fans to the animals in Section B, how much they meant to him. And they meant to him a lot because they were Florida State baseball. And you got to go, again, the fans, the season ticket holders, the umpires, the coaches, the players, and again, college baseball in general, because I've had a lot of people reach out in the last 24 hours.
He had that ability to make everybody feel special. I mean, you said something to that effect, and it was very true. I greatly enjoyed, too, reading all the fan stories yesterday of just people's – they'll say I had one interaction with him ever, and it was just – it affirmed everything I wanted to believe about who he was.
Like you mentioned earlier, yesterday's a tough day. Tough day for all the Seminoles, but everybody's been kind of prepared for it. They kind of knew what was going on. I've got some really close friends that have reached out. They're checking on me because they knew how close I was with Coach Martin, how much he meant to me. But it's going to be a celebration. And Mike Martin always talked about, the celebration. Well, February the 10th at 12 noon at Dick Howser Stadium, it's going to be a celebration of Mike Martin. And we encourage all the fans to come out for that. More details will come out, I'm sure.
The 2019 season, I mean, is kind of a perfect ending in quite a few ways for 11. When you think about it, I mean, a season that had its rough spots, where there was a moment where you were unsure if they'd make the NCAA tournament, and not only do they do that, but they make the run all the way to Omaha and give him kind of the one last run during his one last run. I guess what was it like having the front row seat to that you did?
I mean, that 2019 season was a season of some downs, and some ups, and it ended on the upside. I mean, we go to Gainesville in March and 6-run lead, and we get beat 20-7. Go to NC State the next Friday night and get beat 17-0, and then we get beat a 1-run game, but we won Sunday. So I've always said, if you're going to win one ball game on the road trip, win Sunday, because that makes the trip home a little bit better. But the 2019, at the end of the year, ESPN with Eduardo Perez had reached out to myself, and they wanted to get Coach Martin to do the openings. Remember, the openings for the World Series broadcast were all kind of reflecting on Mike Martin's 40-year career at Florida State. And they were trying to get it organized to come out and film this. Well, Mike Martin rolled the dice because they were going to do the filming the selection day, the NCAA selection day. Now that's rolling the dice because we're all going into the big room, and we find out we're going at Florida State's going to Athens, Georgia as a 3 seed, I think, or whatever it was, something like that. And roll the dice because we wasn't exactly inside it going into the last weekend. And we beat NC State at the ACC tournament for a game that meant nothing to the NC State, but it meant the world for Mike Martin. But going on the trip to Athens, the bus ride to Athens, we stopped at a restaurant, Longhorn, and we always going, and the kids call it the Big Shooter Special. It was a dinner menu. We had it in the middle of the afternoon of salad, grilled chicken, baked potato bread, and we're in and out. We're in and out in 25 minutes from the time we walked in the restaurant. It was all ready. Well, we got it going. We got to Athens. We went to another restaurant, and it was a cousin of the person who worked at the other restaurant. So they got it. I said, you got to beat your cousin's record. We're out in 24 minutes. We beat it in and out. So it got to be a competition thing. And the kids got involved. I mean, you always got to have something. Something's going on crazy special. Well, played well, won a ball game. You know, you got to walk on to hit a couple home runs, this and that. So we win in Athens. It was a great run, a bus ride home. We get that. So we go to LSU. We go in there, set it up, in and out in 23 minutes. 23 minutes. In and out of a restaurant, get rolling, get played well. Again, the opportunity to sweep LSU in their ballpark, and their fans are fantastic when they're winning, and even better when Florida State won. But it got on that roll, and we get to Omaha. Same thing. We get to Omaha, in and out of a restaurant quick. So they got the run going for that in 2019. The kids really thrived off of that part of it and wanted to be with Coach Martin. One of the players told me after we won at LSU, I think it was the 40th win of the year. And he told me, I am so glad we won this ball game because we did not want to be the team that let Coach Martin down of not winning 40 ball games. And again, Kurt, that's one of my favorite stories of telling young coach. If you want to be, think you're going to be a college coach, you want to be successful, you can coach for 40 years and you got to win 50 a year, 50 games a year for 40 years. And you're still 29 games short. That's what's amazing. You can win 50 games a year for 40 years and you're still 29 games short. And again, that record will not ever be touched.
For sure. Well, I greatly appreciate the time, Chip, and thank you for sharing. Like I said, I came to, outside of direct family members, probably somebody who knew him as well as anybody. So thank you so much for honoring 11 this video with us.
Kurt, we appreciate what you're doing. Again, to reflect back on Coach Martin in Florida, and again, how much the Florida State community appreciates what you guys do. Thanks a lot.